The Library of Alexandria, a name that conjures images of a legendary beacon of knowledge holding the wisdom of the ancient world. It was said to contain hundreds of thousands of scrolls, from groundbreaking science and philosophy to epic poetry and detailed history. For centuries, we've been told one simple, tragic story, that it was all destroyed in a single, catastrophic fire. But is that what really happened? The historical truth is far more complex and in some ways, even more tragic. Join us as we sift through the layers of myth to uncover the real story of the Great Library. Our story begins not with fire, but with ambition, in the heart of a city founded by Alexander the Great. After Alexander's time, his general, Ptolemy I Soter, took control of Egypt with a grand vision in mind. He envisioned a center for research and learning unlike any the world had ever seen, the Museum, or Institution of the Muses. And at the heart of this scholarly paradise would be its library, a repository for all human knowledge. This wasn't just a place to store scrolls, it was an engine designed to drive the future of civilization. The mission was simple, yet audacious, to collect a copy of every single book in the world. Royal agents were dispatched across the Mediterranean and beyond, with massive budgets to purchase entire collections of scrolls. No expense was spared. The Ptolemies were obsessed with making their library the most comprehensive in existence. A famous decree was enacted, requiring any ship that docked in Alexandria's harbor to be searched for books. Any scrolls found were taken to the library to be copied by a legion of professional scribes. Often, the library would keep the original scroll and send the freshly made copy back to its owner. They even borrowed the official state copies of famous Greek plays from Athens, promising a huge deposit for their safe return. They kept the priceless originals and sent back beautiful copies, happily forfeiting their deposit for the sake of knowledge. Through these methods, the collection swelled to an estimated 500,000 scrolls, an unprecedented repository of information. This wasn't just a collection, it was a magnet, drawing the greatest minds of the age to one place. The library was more than scrolls. It was a living institution, a powerhouse of intellectual discovery. The world's greatest thinkers were given free lodging, food, and servants, with only one task: to think, research, and discover. Here, Euclid wrote his Elements, the foundation of geometry for over 2 millennia, shaping how we understand space. The brilliant astronomer Aristarchus of Samos proposed a heliocentric model, placing the sun at the center of the universe. This was nearly 1,800 years before Copernicus, a revolutionary idea born within the library's walls. Eratosthenes, the head librarian, calculated the circumference of the Earth with astonishing accuracy using simple sticks and shadows. He also invented the discipline of geography and created the first world map based on scientific principles. The great inventor Archimedes is said to have studied here, developing principles of mechanics and hydrostatics. Medical pioneers like Herophilus performed the first scientific dissections, revolutionizing the understanding of human anatomy. For centuries, Alexandria was the undisputed intellectual capital of the world, all thanks to its great library. But this golden age could not last forever. The library's fate was tied to the political stability of its patrons. In the 2nd century BCE, political infighting began to shake the Ptolemaic dynasty to its core. A particularly troublesome ruler, Ptolemy VIII, nicknamed Physcon, or Potbelly, ascended the throne, bringing turmoil with him. He saw the foreign scholars at the museum with their independent minds as a political threat to his authority. In a disastrous move, he expelled all foreign intellectuals from Alexandria, a purge of the city's greatest minds. This caused a massive brain drain. The scholars scattered across the Mediterranean, taking their knowledge with them. One historian of the time remarked that the expulsion filled the islands and towns with grammarians, philosophers, and geometers. While the library building remained, its soul, the community of brilliant collaborating scholars, was severely wounded. Funding was cut, and the focus shifted from groundbreaking new research to simply preserving what was already there. This was the first major blow, not a fire, but a politically motivated act that began the library's long, slow decline. Now we come to the most famous suspect in the library's demise, Julius Caesar. But the story is not what it seems. In 48 BCE, Caesar was embroiled in the Alexandrian civil conflict, supporting Cleopatra against her brother. Besieged in the palace quarter, Caesar's forces set fire to enemy ships in the harbor to prevent them from being used. Contemporary accounts say the fire spread from the docks and consumed some nearby warehouses. It is believed these warehouses contained scrolls, possibly destined for export, or books that had been seized from ships. The Roman philosopher Seneca, writing later, mentions that 40,000 scrolls were lost in this incident. While a tragic loss, this was not the Great Library itself, which was located further inland as part of the museum complex. In fact, the geographer Strabo visited Alexandria decades later and described the museum and its library as still functioning. So, Caesar did not burn down the Great Library. He likely caused the accidental destruction of a significant storage depot. The myth of Caesar's single-handed destruction is a dramatic oversimplification of a much more gradual process. After Egypt became a Roman province, the Library of Alexandria entered a new phase of its life, and its slow fade continued. The Roman emperors had little of the passionate, personal interest in the library that the Ptolemies had. Funding for the museum and its scholars was reduced. The institution was no longer the state's top intellectual priority. While it still existed and was used, its role as a hub for cutting-edge research diminished significantly. Rome itself was becoming the new center of the world, drawing talent and resources away from older Hellenistic cities. Alexandria was now just one of many important cities in a vast empire, not the singular beacon it once was. The library's collection may have even suffered from neglect, with scrolls decaying due to lack of proper care and resources. There are records of some emperors, like Claudius, adding a new wing, but these were exceptions to the general trend of decline. The intellectual energy of the world was shifting. The library was becoming more of a museum than a laboratory. The institution was slowly starving from a lack of funds, prestige, and purpose under its new Roman masters. The 3rd century CE brought more instability to the Roman Empire, and Alexandria was not spared from the consequences. Around 272 CE, the city became a stage for a regional conflict involving the forces of Queen Zenobia of Palmyra. The Roman Emperor Aurelian besieged the city to reclaim it. The resulting urban strife caused immense damage to the royal quarter. This area, known as the Bruchaion, was the district that housed the original museum and the Great Library. Historical accounts suggest that this part of the city was devastated. The museum and its library likely suffered heavily. If any part of the main library survived until this point, this event was likely a mortal blow. By the 4th century, references to the Great Library in the museum all but disappear from the historical record. This wasn't a singular event of burning books, but the destruction of the library's physical home during a period of urban upheaval. The institution that had been declining for centuries finally lost its building, fading quietly from history. But the story of Alexandria's knowledge doesn't end here. Another, separate library was about to take center stage. As the main library faded, another institution had grown in importance, the library at the Temple of Serapis. Known as the Daughter Library, the Serapeum was a public institution, more accessible than the exclusive museum. It housed a significant collection of its own, estimated at around 10% of the main library's holdings. By the late 4th century, with the Great Library gone, the Serapeum was the main intellectual center of the city. But the Roman Empire was undergoing a profound religious transformation, with Christianity on the rise. In 391 CE, Emperor Theodosius I issued decrees that outlawed pagan rituals, leading to widespread tensions. In Alexandria, a mob, sanctioned by the patriarch Theophilus, descended upon the Serapeum, a prominent symbol of paganism. The temple complex was dismantled. While the fate of its scrolls is debated, many were likely displaced or lost. This event is often the one people mistakenly believe was the burning of the Great Library of Alexandria. The end was not one fire, but a series of declines, political purges, urban strife, and finally, religious conflict. There's one final myth to address, the story that the Arab conquerors destroyed the library in the 7th century. The tale goes that Caliph Omar declared that if the books agreed with the Quran, they were redundant, if not, they were heretical. According to this story, the scrolls were then used as fuel to heat the city's bathhouses for 6 months. However, historians widely regard this story as a fabrication, written centuries after the event. Eyewitness accounts of the Arab arrival in Alexandria make no mention of any great library or any book burning. By 642 CE, the Great Library and the Serapeum Library were already long gone, casualties of the preceding centuries. So, the real story is one of gradual decay. There was no single culprit, no one catastrophic event. It began with budget cuts and political purges, which ended its golden age of discovery. It suffered collateral damage from urban conflicts and neglect under rulers who no longer prized it. The end of the Library of Alexandria was not a loud explosion, but a slow, fading sigh. Though the library itself is gone, its legacy is immeasurable. It fundamentally changed the course of human knowledge. The work done by its scholars in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine formed the bedrock of Western science. The very idea of a universal library, a place for state-sponsored research, originated here. Many of the ancient texts we have today, from Homer to Plato, survived because they were copied and preserved by its scribes. The loss of the library wasn't just a loss of books, but the loss of a unique ecosystem for discovery. It reminds us that knowledge is fragile and that institutions that support it require constant protection and funding. The dream of Alexandria, however, was never truly extinguished. It lived on as an ideal for centuries. Today, that dream is reborn. The modern Bibliotheca Alexandrina stands near the site of the ancient original. It serves as a library, a museum, and a research center, honoring the spirit of its ancient predecessor. The story of the Library of Alexandria is a timeless lesson, a testament to human ambition, fragility, and our enduring quest for knowledge.